Welcome to this special series of America with an Accent dedicated to immigration. 5 episodes produced in partnership with the Immigrant Legal Center of Omaha, Nebraska will offer an account of U.S. immigration history and law, followed by path to citizenship for individuals with a legal option. Next, we will cover being in the United States with no legal option, to finish the series with a debate on immigration law issues. In the first episode, we will answer one question: why partner with the Immigrant Legal Center? Mike Kelly, a retired columnist for the Omaha World-Herald, the local newspaper, conducted this episode. Thank you, Mike, for being part of America with an Accent.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
So what does Immigrant Legal Center bring to the series?
Well, the Immigrant Legal Center provides professional expertise with about 20 lawyers among its 46 full-time employees. Well, during its 20 years, the ILC has processed 16,000 cases, and last year alone assisted individuals from 55 nationalities. Emiliano Lerda, the center's executive director, speaks proudly of his organization and the mission of the Center on Center Street. We're in Omaha, Nebraska, in the middle of the United States, at the Immigrant Legal Center, which is part of the National Justice for Our Neighbors Network. And we're honored to be speaking with the local executive director, Emiliano Lerda. Thank you so much for welcoming us.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for being here.
You know, it strikes me that so many accents have contributed to the melting pot that is America. And the name of this TV program is America with an Accent. But it's never easy being a newcomer anywhere. And that's really where you and your organization come in.
That's right. As an immigrant, as a new neighbor, you always have a lot of challenges. And one of them, when you are immigrating to a new country, is navigating the immigration legal system. And so what we do is hold people's hand and navigate the very complicated maze of immigration laws so that on the other side they can walk away with peace of mind and hopefully lawful status.
Well, that sounds great. Well, there's so much to learn. You have a beautiful place here.
Thank you.
And this has been somewhat of a milestone year for you, isn't that right? A new location and a new name.
Yes. It has been a very busy year for us. We moved to a new location, finished the capital campaign, thanks to the generosity of the community. And we also announced our new name.
And what's the reason for the old name was Justice for Our Neighbors. New name is the Immigrant Legal Center. What was the reason for the change?
That's right. Early on, we decided that we wanted to make all decisions based on what is in the best interest of our clients. And so we migrated from Justice for Our Neighbors of Nebraska to Immigrant Legal Center because we were looking for a more descriptive name, and it would make it easier for people to find us and to know what exactly who we are and what kind of services we provide.
And why the new location?
The new location is because we have been experiencing significant growth over the last 7 to 8 years. When I first started in January 2011, it was 3 full-time employees, 4 full-time employees a month later, and today we have approximately 46 full-time employees.
And the organization actually has been here in Omaha for 20 years, I understand?
That's right. This year is our 20th year anniversary. Our organization was originally started in the basement of Grace United Methodist Church by a group of members of the United Methodist Church that wanted to start a ministry to help immigrants. And so that started in 1999.
This is a nonprofit organization.
That's right.
Where is your funding?
Our funding comes from the generosity of local foundations, private individuals, and we do a lot of outreach to garner the support.
And you mentioned how the staff has grown. You have lots of attorneys and support staff here. How many do you have?
So 46 full-time employees, about 20 of them are full-time attorneys.
With an annual budget of, what, over $3 million?
That's right. Our annual operating budget for this year is approximately $3.6 million.
We'll talk about people, your staff, and those that you serve. But how many clients do you serve, say, in a year or since you've been here?
Right. So last year we provided free legal services, immigration legal services to more than 3,800 cases. And that equates to approximately 1,700 individuals. But this year we currently have approximately 1,700 cases that are active at this particular moment. But since 2011, we have provided services in more than 16,000 cases.
Wow, and it's been increasing. What's the reason for the increase?
The increase is so there's an increase in need. Our immigration legal system is very complicated, and it would be complicated for even an attorney, a well-trained attorney. And if you don't have that legal training, and if you don't have the language abilities, it's virtually impossible.
Wow. So much to learn. Can we go sit down?
Yeah, let's go sit down.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Before we learn more from Emiliano, let's hear a success story from the Immigrant Legal Center.
A Christmas miracle. A mother and son reunited. Mamie needed an immigration attorney. A relative who knew Diara Godinez brought her to Diara's office. Mamie was born in Liberia. When Civil War broke out, she made her way with her family to Ivory Coast and lived there as a refugee. She gave birth to a beautiful boy, Wilfred, in 1999. Civil War broke out in the Ivory Coast in 2002, and conditions were not good within the refugee camp. Mamie took Wilfred to his paternal grandmother. Unfortunately, the grandmother's home was attacked, and Wilfred was separated from his family. Mamie later learned that Wilfred was killed during that attack, along with his father and grandmother. A year later, Mamie resettled in the United States as a refugee. In 2015, Mamie's brother, who resides in West Africa, received a call from a friend from the refugee camp. He told the brother that Wilfred was alive. Mamie's brother was skeptical and unwilling to tell his sister and put her through this if it was not, in fact, Wilfred. He went to see the young man for himself. The friend and Mamie's brother knew it was Wilfred from the moment they saw and spoke with him, so they called Mamie immediately. She immediately came to Diara Godinez. She told Diara that she had found her son and needed help getting him to the United States. Mamie and Diara started by filing an I-130 petition in November of 2015. Diara helped the mother and son complete the DNA test and their paperwork. The results of the testing revealed Mamie was in fact the biological mother of Wilfred. More than 2 years after applying, Wilfred received his visa and arrived in Omaha on Christmas Day 2017. Wilfred was 18 years old. He and his mom saw each other for the first time since the teenager was 3 years old. Mamie and her family wanted to express their gratitude to the entire ILC staff for bringing her a Christmas miracle. She invited ILC's team to the airport to witness what ILC does for families. Overjoyed, Mamie told Diara that the ILC family is her family now.
Well, we'd like to learn more about the Immigrant Legal Center and its purpose and its mission, but I'd like to start off, Emiliano, by asking you, what do you love about your job here?
I think this has been a gift, and I'm very grateful for having had the opportunity to work here. My journey is unlike the journey of most immigrants to this country, and I think it's important for us to clarify that I have been very privileged. I grew up in a house with a father who's a medical doctor, a mother who is a psychologist, and I have had advantages and opportunities that most low-income immigrants wouldn't have. So I think it's important to recognize and accept the fact that I have had a lot of privilege. And it's different. The immigration legal system is different for immigrants that come from a higher socioeconomic status versus those that come from a lower socioeconomic status. And so it gives me the opportunity to pay it forward, really. I mean, it has been my journey to this country, my journey to Omaha and in the community of Omaha has been the product of a lot of people helping me along the way.
And I want to learn more about that in a minute. Let's talk about what is the mission of the Immigrant Legal Center.
Our mission is to welcome immigrants to the community by providing free immigration legal services, education, and advocacy.
And you serve whom?
We provide our services to low-income immigrants, immigrants that have a household income that is under 150% of the federal poverty guidelines. So that would be approximately $35,000, a little more than $35,000 a year of income for a family of 4.
And so you serve both documented and undocumented immigrants?
So we help people that have a legal solution to be able to obtain status. So we help people that may have currently status, but they're applying for a different status, or people that don't have any status and are trying to navigate the system so that they can obtain status on the other side.
Do you find that there are a lot of misconceptions? There's a lot of controversy surrounding immigration. You're a lawyer. You're not trying to help anybody evade the law, right? What do you do legally?
That's right. So there are legal remedies available for immigrants that are in certain situations. One great example is if you are a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, there's something that we can do to help you. And a lot of immigrants don't know that. But there are legal remedies. We are always working within the legal framework. We're attorneys. We have an ethical obligation to abide by the law, and so we are always thinking about what can we do for immigrants that have a solution available, so that we can walk through the system, so that we can have somebody that doesn't have to live in fear anymore.
So you have a great array of kinds of cases. Can you give a few examples of what kind?
So we particularly focus on humanitarian-based immigration. So we don't do employment-based immigration. What that means is most of our cases will be helping people apply for asylum, or again, victims of domestic violence, sexual assault. We help them with U visas or VAWAs, Violence Against Women's Act. These are 2 legal remedies designed to help people that are victims of certain crimes. And then we also have a large number of clients that are under the age of 18, clients that qualify for the special immigrant juvenile status, which is for abused, abandoned, and neglected children.
Do you work with DACA?
Right. We do handle a lot of DACA cases as well. Immigrants that were brought to the country at a very young age and by their parents, and now they have deferred action, which means that they can live here and work here, but it's a temporary status and it's not a road to citizenship.
You're a nonprofit organization. Do you engage in politics? Do you try to avoid politics?
We try to do educational activities that just provide technical knowledge and support. If a lawmaker is working on legislation that has an immigration component, they often reach out to us and ask us, and so we provide that kind of advice and support. We also educate the community about the realities of the immigration legal system.
So as I mentioned, we're here in Omaha, in the middle of the country. What area do you serve here?
Our direct services focus on the entire state of Nebraska and southwest Iowa. But our attorneys also work on impact litigation, and that impact litigation includes cases working on briefs, collaborating with other attorneys across the country, and these are cases that are, of national scope.
Where does your largest client population come from? All over?
Right. So we served people last year from 55 different countries, but the largest number of clients came from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
I know that you're bilingual. You're not 55 lingual. How do you handle the language differences?
Right. So we have a lot of our staff are bilingual. They speak English and Spanish. We do have a few other languages on staff, but if there is a need for an interpreter, we have the ability to tap into services over the phone for interpretation for many, many different languages. And we can also ask in the community if anybody has information about a translator or interpreter from other languages.
And do you deal with refugees or people seeking asylum?
We do not do resettlement of refugees. There are other agencies in the state that focus their work on resettlement refugees, but we do provide immigration legal services to refugees that may need immigration legal services.
And how about the age of your clients?
The vast majority of our clients are under the age of 18. So as I mentioned before, I think the biggest category of clients that we have are special immigrant juvenile status. These are abused, abandoned, and neglected children, as well as victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes.
To help our viewers understand a little bit about what happens here, could you give me an example of a case, kind of the steps that the client and you and your staff would go through?
So typically our clients will hear by word of mouth or by going to another agency that they're working with in their community, and they will hear about us. They will typically call us. We have a centralized intake system in collaboration with 6 other nonprofits that do provide immigration legal services. And so what we do is step 1 is to do that initial intake, to evaluate whether or not there is a legal remedy available to help the individual. And then we also look at their geographic location, their financial needs to see if they qualify for our services. And once we do that, then we proceed to set up an appointment to have the initial interview with an attorney.
Well, your personal background is very interesting. You grew up in Argentina. Did you speak English as a child?
No, I did not. I grew up in Argentina. My immediate family is still in Argentina, but I'm married now and I have two children. So I guess my now immediate family lives here in Omaha, and I did not speak any English growing up, but I did take English classes, and it wasn't until I came to the United States in 1997 as an exchange student in Wilmington, Delaware, that I began to pick up the language abilities to speak more fluently.
You joke that, like a lot of American corporations, you are incorporated in Delaware.
That's right.
A Delaware corporation.
That's right.
But then after you were an exchange student, then you went to college in the Midwest.
That's right. So after high school, I went back to Argentina. And while I was in Argentina, I made a decision to come to the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. And that decision was, the honest truth, it was only because I had seen the movie and read the book, The Covered Bridges of Madison County.
Oh, wow.
And so following my heart, following my dreams, I basically came to study English for 3 months at the University of Northern Iowa. But I met an individual, a couple that changed my life in a million ways. They made it possible for me to access higher education where my parents weren't able to fully cover all the expenses at the time.
Everybody, it seems, needs someone that at a crucial point in your life that can give you that little boost, and you had this couple.
That's right. I had that couple, and then I had several other individuals that were significant change agents in my journey, and that is what drives me. This is why I said what I love the most is that I can pay it forward, because just like strangers showed up and helped me without any ulterior motives, they believed in me, and they motivated me, and I believe that I wanted to make them proud, and I believe that it's important for me to share that and to think about how do I show up in other people's lives.
You obviously showed leadership qualities. You became the first international student at University of Northern Iowa to become student body president.
That's right.
And then from there, you went to law school at Drake. How did that come about?
So at the University of Northern Iowa, I had the honor to serve as a student body president. And it was interesting because the vast majority of the students are Iowa students, and so I had the chance to represent them at the state legislature and with other community leaders. And eventually, I forged relationships with the members of the Board of Regents, and after graduating, I had a job at Principal Financial Group for a year before I was hired by the Board of Regents, state of Iowa. And the gentleman who was the president of the Board of Regents was an attorney who never practiced but found the legal education extremely helpful. In fact, he won a Pulitzer Prize Award. He was the president of NBC News. And he is the person who basically inspired me and advocated for me to go to law school.
Of course, as a retired newspaper guy, he was also a newspaper man too.
He is a newspaper man, that's right.
So newspaper guys aren't all bad.
No.
And then before you arrived here 8 years ago, you had an interesting job.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right before I started working here at Justice for Our Neighbors, now Immigrant Legal Center, I worked for the Iowa Corn Growers Association. And that's because during college and during my law school time, I specialized in public service law, international law and human rights, and then I also specialized in food and agricultural law. I later went to the University of Arkansas to do a Master of Laws in food and agricultural law. So I always had an interest in agriculture because I came from an agricultural community in Argentina, and I was here in the Midwest, and I always felt a connection with rural, with rural communities.
And so do you see a connection with agriculture and food and feeding people with what you do today?
Oh yes, there is a significant connection, and in fact, at the Iowa Corn Growers Association, I had really tremendous support and enthusiastic send-off because people were excited that I was going to be working on an issue that it also affects agriculture. And frankly, there is a really interesting relationship between immigrants and agriculture, not just in this country, but throughout the world.
It's often said that America is a nation of immigrants, either immigrants ourselves or our ancestors were immigrants. It's a noble past, and yet today there is such controversy around it. What do you think is the reason for that?
I think oftentimes people, people don't know what they don't know. So it's a basic principle, but a lot of times people have never encountered an immigrant or never had a chance to talk to an immigrant or an immigrant family. But if you talk to somebody who had a chance to sit down for dinner with an immigrant family or had a chance to visit with them beyond the superficial, greetings, I think you will find that people understand that there's not much difference between an immigrant today and the immigrants that perhaps were, your ancestors that came here for a better future. So those things bring us together, and that's the strength and the vitality that is going to propel this country and this culture to be even greater.
You don't use the term illegal immigrants. They're undocumented immigrants. But what would you say to people that say, why are you helping undocumented people?
We, frankly, I think everybody should be supportive of our organization because if there's a legal remedy available for an immigrant, I think it's in everybody's best interest to work through the immigration legal system and obtain status. That will help the immigrant in many ways, but certainly not only get a job where their rights are going to be protected, but also they're going to have a job that's going to pay well, and they're not going to live in fear. That's extremely important. And then on the other side, I think the community may be fearful, and like I said, in lacking knowledge and understanding the intricacies of immigrants and immigration. And sometimes they forget that an immigrant came here because they were recruited to work in a job that nobody else wanted to work in.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that everyone should support your organization. How can they do so?
They can do that by going to our website, immigrantlc.org. But frankly, they can stop by, and if they like to hear more about us, I'm always available. We'll be happy to talk to them and share information about what the current status of immigration is in the country. We also do a lot of educational presentations, and so depending on what the person may want, we'll be happy to engage in that conversation.
You mentioned that you were funded by donors and foundations. You also put on a very fun fundraising event. Tell me about that.
That's right. And this year is going to be on October 2nd. We do an annual fundraising event. It's called the Food Truck World Tour. It's a very relaxed, very relaxed and fun atmosphere, and people can eat food from 5 different food trucks approximately, and it's very informal. The program is very short, but we try to share an immigrant story during the program to provide education and give people an update on the latest with regards to our organization and our work. But then other than that, it's pretty relaxed and fun, and it's a good opportunity for people to get together and try some new food. And that's something that immigrants bring to the communities.
Absolutely.
Diversity in the cuisine.
Yours is not the only organization that helps immigrants in this area. How do you differ from them? Do you collaborate with them? What's your relationship?
So we collaborate with those nonprofits that do provide immigration and legal services, and we have this Nebraska Immigration Legal Assistance Hotline, centralized intake system that we all share to save each organization time in conducting the initial intake interview. But we also do collaborate in sending cases, because it appears that every organization, so not even having all the nonprofits that do provide immigration legal services combined, we cannot keep up with the demand for our services. So we're still unable to even collectively meet the need for free or low bono immigration legal services.
You told me what you loved about your job. What are the biggest obstacles?
Biggest obstacles, I would say, attracting and retaining the absolutely brilliant and capable staff, because we're a nonprofit, and so sometimes we have to compete with other employers that can probably offer better compensation packages. And the work that we're asking people to do is highly complicated, very technical, and also very emotionally demanding. So continuing to build capacity within our organization for resiliency and to help people gain the leadership skills to not only make a big difference in their life, but also take good care of themselves.
The organization has grown so much. What is your vision for the future?
So our vision for the future is to continue to collaborate with other nonprofits and the community at large to better meet the need for pro bono immigration legal services.
Thank you so much for being our guest on America with an Accent. Before we close, we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to conclude with?
No, just express a deep and sincere sense of gratitude. None of what we have done here, the growth, our ability to better meet the need for pro bono immigration legal services will be possible without this really amazing, generous philanthropic community in the city of Omaha and the state of Nebraska. And I think that's something very unique and something that we should all be very grateful for.
Emiliano Lerda, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
So good to have this service available in town.
Indeed, this is a great resource for individuals in need.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
This was America with an Accent for this week. Next week, Shane Allison, the legal director of ILC, will summarize U.S. immigration history and law. I hope to see you again next Monday here on KPAO or online at newamericansmedia.com. I am Enkela Vebio.